right. I'm Jeannene Hurley with the Department of Public Instruction. Welcome to my little presentation about the lovely E-rate program going by the Federal Communications Division. If I could, I know some of you are with school districts because, you know, you're my people, I know you, but I don't recognize others of you, and so if you're with a school district, I apologize, but if you're with a municipality, let me know that, because I am going to have a few remarks for you on that too. So if we could, since we're such a small group here, we could be, you know, a little more intimate. And let's just do some quick introductions and tell me what your organization is, and if you're with school district, how long you've been doing E-rate. Phil, why don't you just go right ahead there and start.
Phil Decker, Lenore County Schools, and we used a consultant for many years, but last year I filed for forms, and this year I'll be doing it again.
Good job. All right. Let's say oh, very good. And we've had a conversation. Because you're still in the Northeast, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I got lost in a cotton field in the Northeast yesterday. Oh my God. I was going to the NClgisa school, the new regional high school out there. Went right by the Vernon White thing, and because I was not using my common sense, and I was following my GPS. Went right by it, turned right on Mill Pond, went by this really old building that had a bunch of turkey buzzards on it, and I'm thinking, where am I? Then I'm on a gravel road, and I'm going through a cotton field, and I'm thinking, if I have to stop and ask that guy who's spraying that cotton where I am at, shoot me now. I found it. I found where I was going. So anyway, it was crazy. It was crazy. That's just, those kinds of things don't usually happen to me. I'm usually not directionally challenged, but yesterday I was, so yeah. And then the person at the NClgisa school said, well, you know, if you're going to Asheville, she said, don't get lost. Don't end up in Nag's Head. Thank you very much. I deserved that. I deserved that one. So yeah, okay. Thank you. Go on. Go ahead. She's not. Go ahead.
Hey, Yates County Schools. Almost first school year doing E-rate. I don't know. I got one. Never mind.
We all have our crosses to bear on E-rate.
I got one stuck in the system. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Now you know that if Barry and I know about that, we'll shake the trees on it too. So right?
Yeah, we've been shaking those trees.
Okay.
Not your fault.
We might have to shake the living tree. So we'll see. Yes, ma'am.
I'm not with the school system.
Yes.
I'm with Mecklenburg County, and actually, the library, I'm a customer relationship manager, and the library is one of my customers.
Yes.
So I am here to find out what I can find out to take back to them.
Yes, I'd like to talk to you about that because the library system in Charlotte Meck hired a consultant. Call me maybe. That's a jazzercise song. I just thought I'd kind of say that. I'm an instructor, so we'll talk.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. And your name was?
Felina Harris.
Felina Harris. Thank you so much for being here. Yes.
Yes, my name is Tyrone Pierce. I'm with one of the vendors, NetApp, and was just listening in on how
Yes.
the communication sector is doing great. Just gathering
A
information.
vendor from the dark. I'm kidding.
Sorry.
Somebody will
some,
give us prizes.
you know, some of my vendors are my best friends. Indeed. So, okay, welcome. I do vendor training as well.
Okay.
I do vendor training as well.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Name? Name?
Kip Harvey, I'm with Data Network Solutions.
Oh, another vendor.
Just learn.
Okay, so, very good. All right. Yes, very good. Did you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Dave Torn. I am one of the room monitors, if anybody needs anything.
Oh,
So
you changed your tune. You said room host. Now you're a room monitor.
Well, I was trying to be nice. But I'm from the city of Winston-Salem in the IT department there.
Right. Okay.
So I'm just going to listen in and see what I learn.
All right.
So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Yes, sir.
My name is Mike Getz, and I'm really out of place. I'm with the city in Virginia, with Lynchburg,
Okay.
I'm the IT director there. We share a wide area network with our school division.
Yes.
So we have costs that we share there. So I know they support some of what we do with
Yes.
E-rate. And also from a public library perspective,
Mhm.
we also have some qualifying expense there as well. And I am totally clueless with how E-rate works, because whenever I get 30 seconds into the conversation, I kind of fall over. So I'm
Okay,
just kind of
we'll
looking
try
for.
not to let that happen.
Well, I know we use a consultant to help determine our amounts and how to go get the money we can, but
Mhm.
it's a black box to me.
Okay, all right, well, sometimes it's a black box to me too, and I've been doing it 12 years. So thank you very much for being here. Yes, sir.
Well, I'm even more out of place. My name is Jonathan Christian Hodges. I'm a graduate student in Western Carolina's MPA program.
Well, very good, and you're just here to learn about E-rate.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, man, when I grow up, I want to be just like you. Dang, and a graduate student too. All right, what's your program? Public policy?
Public affairs.
Public affairs, all right, very good. Well, welcome.
Thank
you. All right, Maurice. Maurice is just here for moral support.
I'm here to learn more about E-rate. I'm an E-rate aficionado, right?
Yeah, okay, all right.
I'm Sheila Lowe, I'm with Halifax County Schools, and currently, we have a consultant. We're looking at moving away from that. So, I'm going to know more about it.
Yes. And here's my only thing about, the whole consulting thing, I'm not here to diss anybody who's trying to make a buck, right? That's not what this is about. What this is about is making sure that every dime stays in the classroom. That's what I'm about, so if you're paying somebody to kind of do the paperwork, 5% of, your award, you're not a 90% school anymore, you're an 85% school, right? I mean, that's just economics 101 right off the top, right? So, those are just some things that I am a little passionate about on that. I want to just make sure every dime kind of stays in the classroom. All right, so I just got back from Washington, D.C. A short time ago, and they were talking about some interesting things, and those are some interesting things that I wanted to talk to you about as well. I want to, first of all, talk about the state of E-rate, and I'm going to apologize to several of you in here because some of this language may not be very familiar, and I'm sorry about that, but I'll try to explain things as we go along. So I do want to talk about the state of E-rate here. Why am I not on here? Oh, I mean, I'm on, I'm just not on. Come on, baby, you were just on, weren't you? Oh, man. Oh, man, I'm so sorry about that. What's that?
I think it's just cycling through. the
Okay, all right.
things.
So I should have messed around with it earlier. All right, so let's just begin by talking about
There we go.
something called rollover. In the scheme of things, in this program, back in 1996, the Congress set aside this money, $2.25 billion for schools and libraries. Where is that money coming from? Where is that money coming from? If you look on your phone bill, because you all look at your phone bill every month, right? Even you vendors. You look at your phone bill every month, right? And you see all your charges, blah, blah, blah. There's a small charge on there that's gotten a little bigger over the years called universal service fee. Universal service fee. And of course, depending on what side of the fence you sit on, that's really, doing really good things as a fee, or it's a tax and it's really bad, if you know what I mean. In this election season, as we talk about these things, okay? So the really nice thing about this fee that's collected in this big pot and sent to Washington, D.C., is that $2.25 billion of about the $12 billion that's collected from ratepayers, $2.25 billion of that goes back to schools and libraries, right? And it's a tangible thing. For those of you in the school districts, could you say that you would be talking about one-to-one initiatives today if there was no E-rate? No, because we wouldn't have the infrastructure. We just would not have the infrastructure built out and into our buildings without E-rate, okay? So it's a significant amount of money. Every year, not all of the money gets kind of dispersed. So I have school districts who apply. They apply and everything's really great, and then when the rubber meets the road, for whatever reason, they can't do a project or something happens and they don't spend all of the money that they said that they wanted. All right, so that money gets left on the table, and then that money gets rolled over by the FCC. Now, they don't do last year's money. They don't do the year before's money. They go back maybe 5, 6 years and grab this money that has not been spent for whatever reason, and they pull it forward called a rollover, right? In 2012, the rollover was enough to fund something called Priority 2. So there are 2 types of things that get funded with this money. Priority 1, which back in 1996, how did you all connect to the internet back in 1996? How did you all connect to the internet in 96? Through the phone company, right? They were the only game in town, phone company. But now, wow, what have we got now? Wow, we've got all kinds of crazy stuff now. We've got broadband, we've got all these kinds of things. Probably something that the folks in Congress and the FCC didn't even envision. I mean, something we couldn't even envision in 1996. So there's been a lot of change. So everybody who applies for phone and internet, broadband, cellular, web hosting, email, those types of things are all considered Priority 1 service. Priority 1 service. And no matter how rich or how poor your school district is, you're going to get a discount on those bills from your vendor. Everybody gets Priority 1. In fact, we made that comment to the FCC about 10 days ago. We had 6 Wireline Competition Bureau attorneys in the room with us, and we said to them, we think Priority 1 is a promise. You promised schools and libraries that if they went out and signed multi-year contracts for WAN and cellular and local and long distance and VoIP and all this web hosting, all this Priority 1 stuff is a promise. They were a little taken aback, imagine that. A promise, yeah. Yeah, we got, see, some of these WAN contracts are 5-year contracts for these WAN contracts. So, and without that connectivity, what are we going to be doing with our one-to-one initiatives? How are we going to do our online training, which is happening at the end of this year? Are you panicking yet, school districts? Don't panic. Because guess what? They still are going to let you do paper and pencil. Did I say that out loud? Oh, God. Nobody from DPI better tell me. Okay. Okay. All right. So, once Priority 1 is all funded, whatever's left over goes to Priority 2, which is everything behind the wall. Okay, all of you who are network people, everything behind the wall. So wiring, switches, hubs, servers, even the rack that houses the servers and the routers and the switches is eligible. Sometimes even the raceway is eligible. So there are certain things that are eligible behind the wall. And only the neediest schools right now are getting discount on that because we're running out of money. The $2.25 billion is not enough. This year alone, in 2012, the demand was over $5 billion. So do the math, we're a little short. We're a little short, we're a lot short. Go ahead.
So is there a certain percentage, do they have a percentage that they look at to determine what the neediest schools are, or who the neediest schools are?
The neediest schools are determined by the National School Lunch Program. Is everybody familiar with NSLP? Okay? So, and this is critical because the problem with NSLP is you have elementary school kids who take their application home How many of you have kids? How many of you have kids? Right, right? How many of you have seen the application? How many of you have seen the application, the school lunch application? You've never seen the school lunch application? My point exactly. You have got some kids who just don't give their parents the application. And that's a problem. That's a problem. And here's the other problem. As the kids start to, age through our school system, your middle school and high school kids know what that form is. They know what it is. And it's an automatic stigma. They do not want anything to do with it. They don't want anything to do with it. So we've tried to combat that by doing something called direct certification. So what that means is if any family is receiving services from the state, that would be Medicaid, food stamps, I think it's called the SNAP program now, SNAP. If anyone is involved in that at the state level, the nutrition directors in every district can go out to the Department of Health and Human Services, pull that file down and match it against their NCWISE data. NCWISE is a student database at DPI. But that's very labor intensive, would you say?
Temporary.
It's a bit labor intensive trying to count these kids. And if you're Charlotte-Mecklenburg with 140,000 students, okay, that's the second time that's happened here today. I don't know what is going on back there. Okay. All right, so suffice it to say that in certain communities, we're having a problem getting an accurate count of the children who are eligible. So what happens sometimes is we have consultants in our program, and the consultants will come in and they'll tell a superintendent, well, that high school should be at 90%. So we're going to do what's called a survey. And they're going to survey the parents. In addition to the National School Lunch Program, they're going to ask parents to fill out a survey and have it sent back in, and they're going to count the surveys. All right? Perfectly acceptable. That's known as an alternative discount mechanism. So if you're going to, I wouldn't say abandon the National School Lunch Program numbers, which I'm a systems person. I like data. And I like my nutrition directors. I like them a lot. These people are professionals. They know what they're doing, right? And so I tend to trust their ability to also count the children that are in their community, because they know. They're right there on the ground. They know what's going on. My concern is handing over a very critical piece of this program to a consultant. And at the end of the day, you still have to go through an audit. You still have to make it through a clean audit, would you say? Right? All of us who are in government, we know we have to make it through an audit. So I'm just concerned about those types of things at the back end, making sure that you can prove everything that you've asked for. Because this program is like the IRS to doing a 1040 on steroids. On steroids, right? You can take a deduction with the IRS as long as you can prove it, right? Are we there? Right? Are you glazing over yet? Okay, so in the scheme of things, that's kind of how it all starts out, is there was enough money in the rollover order to fund only 90% poverty rate school districts in 2012. So if you were at 89% and below, you have already received your denial letter. Now, would you say that an 89% school is a needy school? I would say yes to that. But they're out. They're out. Unless you are absolutely at 90%, you're out. And now I know Halifax, you're at 90%. District-wide, right? You're not just each individual building, but the entire district. Lenore? 88%. Guess what? You're out. You're out for 2012. You're out for 2012. Lenore?
77.
77, forget it, baby.
make it to the survey.
Oh, yeah.
62.
62%. But that's district-wide, right? That's if you put all your,
We have-
all
we
your
have-
school buildings
We
together.
have 2 elementaries that come so close, but
Hmm.
those go.
Okay, and therein lies where people start to kind of want to work the system, so to speak. And let me tell you, I'm all about, I know the rules here. If I can do a couple of buildings that are reporting in at 90%, I'm going to file for those buildings at 90%. And I'm going to get equipment in there. And I can do that 2 out of every 5 years. 2 out of every 5 years, I can load up those elementary schools. Normally, that's what it is, because, you know, those are the kids who are bringing back their forms. We can count them. We have tangible evidence that that's a poverty school. Okay, so what I can do then, as I start to strategize on this, is I'm going to load up those schools, and after 3 years, I can then move that equipment maybe to some of my less poverty schools. You see where I'm going there? So that is a strategy that I have been trying to get people to think about is, let's get those elementary schools or those high poverty schools going and file for those every 3 years, every 3 years. So now you're on a cycle. Every 3 years, that building's going to be kind of my staging building, for lack of a better term, right? I'm going to put all that equipment in there. Now the problem is, how easy is it to pull cabling out of a building? And yeah, you're not going to be doing that. So I'm only talking, you know, kind of hardware that can actually be physically moved. Oh, there would be access points, wouldn't it? Right? Anything? What else?
Core switches.
Core switch.
And you can put 7 core switches in there.
You could. You could. You could. You could do that. All right. So those are the types of things that I want people to start thinking about. Okay, if we're going to only be able to get our 90%ers from now on, then we really need to start thinking about how we're going to use that and make it work for us in a strategic kind of way. All right. So our 2012 rollover impact order allowed us to fund all P1 and just 90% schools, and that's this year. So what do we think that, let's skip that. What do we think 2013 is going to look like? And the reason that we're talking about 2013 already is because this program is so crazy that we're starting right now to gear up to file applications for the stuff that we need starting July 1, 2013. Now, those of you who are on the vendor side, that's kind of crazy, right? Because, you know, equipment can change every 3 months, every 6 months, and now we're asking our schools to order stuff and get things on the table like 10 months ahead. I mean, it's just crazy, but that's how it works. That's just how it works. All right, so we think it's going to be more of the same next year. There's going to be a high demand for Priority 1. In fact, in my belief, Priority 1 is going to be completely exceeding all expectations. We had a 12.5% increase in Priority 1 for 2012, which means we had $10 million left over of the $2.25 billion. $2.25 billion. $10 million was left over, right? So if we even have a 5% increase, let alone a 12.5% increase in Priority 1, there will not be enough money to even fund Priority 1. So then where are we at? That is called proration, and we'll talk about proration and what that's going to mean.
Jeannene, how much was left over again? Sorry.
10 million. 10 million. But that was before the rollover. That was before the rollover. Okay? Once they rolled over, there was then enough money to fund 90% for equipment.
And there's no rollover this coming year.
Well, there will be. It's just how big will it be? Will it be enough? Will it be enough to again fund P2 at 9%? Or will they have to use rollover money to supplement everybody at P1, which we still believe is a promise. Is a promise. You know, in North Carolina, we're a model for the other states, and I have like no worries saying that to all of my other colleagues around the nation. You guys should be doing what we're doing here. And I say that because of MCNC and NCREN and the Connectivity Services Initiative that the legislature put in place back in 2007. There's $22 million set aside every year for connectivity. And what that means is we, the state, DPI, through that $22 million, are paying for the infrastructure connectivity from the road to the demarc at the school, right? That's the big pipe that's coming into every 115 school districts. We are paying for that outright. And then school districts, if they have multiple buildings, they have to have WAN service, wide area network service. And so we allow the school districts to kind of negotiate those contracts on their own, right? They negotiate their own WAN contracts. Now, in certain circumstances, those are kind of high, middle, and low, you know, there's all kinds of range of costs on that. But the bottom line is the school district leverages E-rate on that WAN connectivity, and whatever E-rate does not pay for, based on the percentage that you're allowed under E-rate, that connectivity services picks up the balance. So school districts in this state are paying zero for connectivity. The circuit coming into the building and the circuits that are connecting the buildings. All right? PRC 73 going out next week. That's a little fun that we used to pay all the school districts back for their out-of-pocket costs for their WAN. All the school districts going, yay! What are you going to do with that money? Spend it. Spend it. Do you have to spend it on connectivity or infrastructure? No. No. What are you going to use yours on? Do you know?
Haven't decided.
Haven't decided yet.
I want to see the amount.
I want to see how much it is. Okay. What are you going to spend yours on? Do you know?
I think that's what we use for our, service provider for our.
Oh, I didn't even hear that.
I know,
I so did not even hear that.
that.
She's still got to pay her consultant on that money. Oh my God. Oh,
Dress it up a little bit.
okay.
Last year.
Oh, what are you going to do with your PRC 73?
Probably reinvigorate our IVC units that are in each school.
Okay. Anybody going to buy one-to-one? No? Nobody's going to buy devices? Okay. You're going to buy devices. What are you going to buy?
We're doing a one-to-one initiative for the, basically K-12, and that's gonna be a piece of the.
You're doing one-to-one K-12, not 3-12? What are you giving those kindergartners?
Well, we're looking at a, it'll be iPad based on the
Really?
floor end.
October
And I'll
21st.
say all that, that will be we've got a goal grant in play at the
Okay.
moment. If that gets funded, we're going to K. If not, we'll start at 3 and phase
Right.
down.
I got you. Okay. So I can't even tell you my 19-year-old, right? She's so mad because her high school this year, all the seniors are getting an iPad. And she said, yeah, it's just heck to get old, isn't it? Yeah, yeah. That never happened to us when I was in school. Yeah, have you heard that? Do you say that? We never got that when I was in school. Yeah, she's all mad about that. All right, so it's going to be pretty much more of the same. It's going to be more of the same for 2013. We're going to have a very high demand for P1, most likely more than last year, and it's probably going to be more than what's in the fund that we can even fund. So it's going to be all about rollover funds and how much they're going to pull in from rollover. Our window dates are to be determined. Now what that means is we have a certain number of days to get these applications in, right? It's an application process, and it's about a 75-day window. And we were told in DC a couple weeks ago that that window might open a couple of weeks earlier than what it did last week. Now, for those of you who are in the school district area, this is very strategic now, because in order to kind of stop those wayward vendors from doing things that we want them to do, we want them to send us a bid, but you have 28 days, right? So if that window is going to open around December 15th, you're gonna be getting phone calls from me. I'm gonna be hammering you to get those Form 470s filed on November 15th, right around, you know, firearm deer season opening. Oh, that's in Michigan, it's already started. What was I thinking? Okay. So right around November 15th or earlier, I'm gonna be asking you to file those Form 470s because if that window opens right around the 15th of December, 20th, your 28-day waiting period is going to be up. You can evaluate your bids, pick a vendor, sign your contracts, or do your month-to-month, file your 471, and you're done. You're done for the year. Have you got me, those of you who are filing? Do you get what that means? That is a strategic way to get this thing done, right? And if your 28 day is up and you pick your vendor and you file your 471s, this will put a little bit of pressure on the vendors, of course, to be out there making sure they're looking at these 470s and getting any good bid. Now, and it's going to be some pressure on the vendors to kind of step it up. Step it up. Okay, I do vendor trading, by the way, too. But I'm really nice when I do vendor trading. Really, I am. I don't put my wicked bitch of the East hat on when I do my trading for vendors. Okay, so we don't know exactly yet when that window's going to open, but as soon as it does, when I know, you know. When I know, you know. Okay. So some things that I could talk about, but I won't. I'm going to go back and just give you another real quick introduction on understanding some of the basics here of this program here. And I'll just talk briefly about that, and then I'm going to talk about gift rules. Gift rules. We had another 26 slides on gift rules. 26 slides on gift rules. And I'm thinking to myself, what's going on here? What are they after? What do you think the feds are after when they put 26 slides of gift rules in their national presentation? They're watching. They're watching what's going on out there. So, yeah, I want you to just really, 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 really be careful about that. All right, so the whole program is run by the FCC. Right? There are 5 commissioners. Depending on who's in the White House, which currently we have a Democrat in the White House, that means there are 3 Dems that are commissioners and 2 Republicans. Chairman Janikowski is the lead guy right now. The rumor on the street is that no matter, well, if Obama gets in again, he's going to leave. Obviously, if Romney gets in, there will be a whole new kind of commission. There will be 3 Republicans and 2 Democrats, and so we'll have a new commissioner. And they each have their own projects that they like to roll out. The most current project that we're involved in right now is the EDU 2011 pilot project. And Onslow County was one of 20 school districts across the nation that received that pilot project money. And really what it was all about is off-campus usage. Off-campus usage, because that is not eligible. Right now, off-campus usage is not eligible of the school's internet. So Onslow County was the only group that was allowed to do that. So USAC is, go right ahead.
I'm sorry, the off-campus usage. Is a wireless network on campus, like outside, but is that considered off-campus?
Okay, let's talk a little, just briefly about that. So I've got a wireless situation going on in my building. I got APs all over the place, right? And are you asking me if a parent or child comes into the parking lot and wants to use the wireless access? Is that happening? Is that happening? Nobody's going to admit it, are they? It depends, right? So if you've got a guest wireless network, that is completely acceptable. However, you've got to filter it. You've got to filter that access. Are you filtering that access? Say yes, even if you're not. Say yes, because that's a good answer. Okay, so those are some things that we as school districts have to be careful of. Libraries not so much. Libraries not so much because they have a different filtering rule that they have to live by. Schools, however, have to be what's called CIPA compliant. That is the Children's Internet Protection Act. And every computer, and that's the word they use, computer, it's computers. That's the verbiage right directly from the law. It's computers have to be filtered. Well, what's a computer? Is that a computer? Is that a computer? Is that a computer? Yeah, and I'm telling you right now, the FCC considers every one of these devices a computer. They are not distinguishing. They are not distinguishing that handheld device or that iPad or that netbook or whatever it is, those are all considered computers. So they had better be filtered. Unless there's this bona fide, thing for research. You can turn off the filter for specific areas for bona fide research. Okay? But there are 3 major things that you need to do to be CIPA compliant in this program, right? You gotta have a filter, which all 115 of our school districts are pretty much available to use Zscaler through MCNC. That's part of our whole NCRAN connectivity initiatives. So I'm not worried about that. Not worried about that technology protection under the filter. What I am concerned about are the internet safety policies. Have you got policies in place, maybe signed off on by the student and the parent, that there's appropriate behavior with the computer, and then who's monitoring that? Also part of that new policy is the law that was signed by President Bush in October 2008, saying that these schools had better be teaching children through their curriculum on cyberbullying awareness and response, how to behave in chat rooms. That is part of the law. That is part of the law. And all policies needed to be updated by July 1. So I'm hoping that I don't have to write a lot of waivers to the FCC on this one, but I already know I have to write 3 waivers because not all school boards had that policy updated by July 1. I mean, it was on their plate to get it done, but some of them didn't do it until August 1. Right? That's not July 1, would you say? And there's a new sheriff in town at the FCC. There's a new attorney who is running the Wireline Competition Bureau. And let's just suffice it to say that she is a strict constructionist. The words are the words are the words. And by golly, we had better straighten up and fly right. And I don't have any problem with that. I don't have any problem with that. I kind of like that. As long as I know where she's standing and she's not maybe changing her mind on things, I'm good. I'm good with that. So I already know I have to write 3 waivers for some school districts who didn't quite have it there.
May I ask a question? Pretty much as it relates to what was just asked.
Yes.
This is just a hypothetical.
Of course it's a hypothetical. They're all hypothetical.
Okay. So there's an elementary school that's located near I-95.
Oh.
And there's a weekend that possibly someone was driving past that works for the school system and noticed that there were cars lined up, not in the parking lot, but, right.
Yes.
So it was quite obvious that they were using or tapping into the wireless.
Right.
Are there any rules or stipulations that the district would actually have to put in place to keep that from happening?
So if you've got a guest wireless network, have you got it locked down? That you have to have a password to get in?
I mean, I'm sure they would, yes.
Of course they do. So in that sense then, you have protected your district,
Okay.
right? Because you've got guest wireless and you've got it locked down. Does that make sense?
But it doesn't make sense that cars would be lined up and able to get on that network.
Locked down from unappropriate sites.
So that's
not
the
locked down
filtering.
from access.
And that is
to
the filtering, that's right.
What's the filter?
That's a filter. Is anybody familiar with the term war driving?
Yes.
War driving? Anybody know? That's kind of an old term now.
Oh, that's what.
But I'm kind of an old girl, so. What's war driving, you know?
drive around and try to find an access point you can get on and use the internet for free?
Not that I have ever engaged in that behavior myself. We're driving. And then what you do, what I've heard is done, is once you find an open hotspot, you know, you go to this little website and you put it in, you know, so that everybody else can know that, you know, who does that? Who does that? Yeah. That's what's wrong with war driving. That's what war driving. It's still kind of popular, but, you know, it's
But
just.
they can, password protect the
Absolutely.
network to stop
That's right.
that from happening.
That's exactly correct.
I mean, that's been done, but
Right.
here again, I'm just asking because hypothetically, that could have possibly happened at some point, and I just want to make sure that, there aren't any policies that are kind of broken as it relates to that.
So here's how the FCC, I think, views that, right? What they want is ubiquitous connectivity, right? So if someone comes into your parking lot and they need to get on the internet, let them, but you've got it filtered, right? You're filtering everything that's going on there, so that's, you know. Now here's something, if you find somebody coming in and they're doing the whole pornography and the really ugly things that people do, blah, 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 you can kind of track that, right? And you can block some things that are going on. I believe you can block something called a MAC address. And that's beyond my capability here, but there's technical things that you can do to block even that MAC address from even hitting your network, right? So, but those are monitoring things now that you're gonna have to step up and kind of keep an eye on that kind of thing, right? So, it's gonna happen because it's gonna happen. Now, yes, go right ahead.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
So, you know, I'm pretty familiar with what needs to happen in the K-12
Yes.
sector. Now, if I'm a local government and we have libraries that are looking to do or take advantage of the E-rate funding, or if I'm a IT director and I see a way of bolstering or improving the connection to the library, what types of things do I need to be concerned about? Because I don't need to have SIPA in a local government library, but what do I need to have from a technological standpoint in a library?
So, Mr. Joe Fredoso was here a little bit earlier with MCNC, and even though libraries are not part of the Connectivity Services Initiative, that means really nothing to me. I'd be calling Joe Fredoso and saying, hey, what can you offer me as a library, right? What can you offer me as a hospital? This afternoon, I'm going to be talking to the North Carolina Head Start Association. What can we offer, you know, the Head Starts at MCNC to bring them also into this thing so that we have this big connectivity? I mean, they got that B-Top award. Let's take advantage.
Yeah, and I think that goes to be more specific with your question, is that I hear you asking about like the filtering, there's the simple things for school. I think some agencies have their own policies around the use of their infrastructure, and especially since MCNC is a federal funded network, they have some rules that they have to comply with. I don't know what they are, but I'm sure that that would be part of some type of contractual agreement if they were to go with MCNC.
Yes, MCNC has Z-Scale. That's what we're using in our school districts. But I want to address what you said about libraries not filtering for SIPA. If they're receiving an E-rate discount for internet, they have to be SIPA compliant.
So so a local government public library
Yes.
has to be SIPA compliant.
If they get E-rate discount on their internet.
So if they want to apply for E-rate, then
Yes.
they need to be SIPA compliant.
If they're filing for internet. If they're only filing for phones, which is what you're gonna find, all these librarians, they're like, yeah, we're not doing that SIPA thing. You all know your librarians, right? Yeah, don't tread on me. So they're not filing for internet access, they're only filing for phone service.
Okay.
But here's how that got twisted up, right? Your phone company is bundling that internet access, but they're filing it under telecom. So the FCC caught on to that, and they're saying, wait a minute here. So it's been a very tug of war between the libraries and the FCC over this, on whether or not they have to filter, because their access, even though it's coming through the telco and it's filed under telecom, it's really internet access. That's right.
So if it's like, again, through like a service provider, you know, the laws are not as strenuous as it is if they go through E-rate and MCNC or ASC.
So if a library was to go through MCNC, I wouldn't say that it's not as strenuous, but they'd be able, let me just say how, for schools, if they, all 115 schools, and some charters who are on the MCNC network, we at the state, Barry and I have to collect a form, the Form 479. And what that Form 479 says is that all of our downstream people are SIPA compliant. We have to have that for our state application, right? So we don't have any libraries on our state application yet, right? And I would think that...
So they file in their own right?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct. So each library files on their
So
own.
they're not a part of the school system?
No, because that's, CSI stands for Connectivity Services Initiative, and that's to connect the schools. That's what the money was set aside for, right? But I do know that there has been some conversations with libraries and maybe bringing them also into the MCNC family. Now, that might not be Connectivity Services Initiative, but they could be coming on to MCNC and the NCRN family to get better pricing.
Yeah, and they are.
Right? So the question then becomes, do they need to be SIPA compliant?
So I got another little scenario too.
You go right ahead. You go right ahead.
So, and I'm thinking about Mike
Yes,
and partnering with
yes.
K-12 locations. So I'm a local government, we're a K-12 institution, and we partner to get fiber into our locale. How does that impact local government with SIPA and all these other compliance? And we're partnering around this fiber. We've got this fiber. We're all connected some sort of way. And oh, by the way, we launched a downtown Wi-Fi hotspot that's being paid by some of this. So, I mean, how exposed are we, or does it not matter? Or,
What a great word. So part of where you would start on that is what's known as cost allocation, right?
okay.
But cost allocation is based on tangible things, right? So in your IT world, are your IT people able to separate this traffic from this traffic from this traffic?
In our case, we do. We
Okay.
don't even put the public access wireless on our network. It's a separate internet connection. But we also provide, hardwired services in our library that children use.
That's correct.
So I think we're still meeting the filtering requirements
The
from
SIPA
that
requirement, that's
perspective. But the interesting conversations where I'm from is we have a new school superintendent who now wants to deploy probably guest networks in the public schools for students to bring their own devices and those kinds of things.
That's correct.
So we're struggling now with how to engineer that. But up till now, we've kept traffic totally separate.
So let me ask you two questions. I'm sorry. Let me ask you two questions. Now, you said you're thinking about how you're going to engineer that.
Yes.
In addition to that question, how are you going to monitor that? So you've got the technical engineering piece, and then you've got that soft kind of who's monitoring it.
Well, fortunately for me, I don't have to worry about that because I've got a compadre in the school system that has to worry about that. One of my questions is how we're going to pay for it and what are sources of funding.
Right. So E-rate is definitely a source of funding. It would be part of a cost allocation, however.
Yeah, well, we do the cost allocation thing already for our shared services.
Right.
Yeah.
What
Right.
county is it?
I'm in a city in Virginia,
Oh, in Virginia.
yeah, Lynchburg. So I don't know that the rules are different, Virginia versus North Carolina. I don't think they are.
No, I was just
No.
thinking about a funding source, but this funding source is only for,
Well, it sounds like you've got some things in Carolina that we just don't have in Virginia.
We, for lack of a better term, we have got it going on. You know, and that was one of the things that attracted me to come here, because I was recruited from Michigan to come here and do E-rate, and that was one of the things that attracted me here, and the fact that I could work from home. And I live in Washington, and here I am in Asheville, North Carolina. It was a long drive yesterday, but it was beautiful. All right. But yeah, North Carolina has got it going on. There is money, $22 million set aside for this connectivity initiative, right? And so the other really nice thing about that is, and I don't mean to say that we're in control, but it's kind of, we can determine how much bandwidth every school needs based on their usage, because we're monitoring that. So if they're spiking at a certain point for a certain number of days, up they go, automatically. What we don't have control over is that wide area network stuff, right? Because, you know, the vendors will come in and, you know, sell them a 2 gig circuit, and maybe they're only at 50 meg, right? That's a little much, right? So those are some of those issues that we're dealing with. Go. Did I answer your question? I'm sorry.
I think so.
Okay, okay.
So is the connectivity initiative different than E-rate?
Yes.
So are those two different things?
Completely two separate things. Connectivity services is a legislative item every year that the North Carolina legislature approves, or every 2 years, excuse me, because it's the 2-year budget cycle. So that's every 2 years, they kind of reinvest this $22 million into the infrastructure, which is what we use to leverage our state application and reimburse all of the school districts for their out-of-pocket costs for the connectivity, right? Okay, so, I'm sorry, go right ahead.
I was just gonna try to clarify the question or maybe the answer with you. In the scenario that you gave, I think it really depends on the partnership. I think I heard you correctly to say the library system and the local government is partnering to leverage the cost of the service. So I think that if E-rate is involved at that library and they're paying for one circuit for the local government and the library, then it's an issue.
It's a cost allocation.
Oh, cost allocation.
It's a cost allocation, but it has to be based on tangible, something that you can put your hands on, because at the end of the day, again, auditors are gonna come walking in the door, and they're gonna wanna see, how did you make that cost allocation? Now, there's no hard and fast rules over this. You just have to have a reasonable way of showing this was the cost for the library, this was the cost for the city, right? And so I will go to the MAC on that too. I write appeals. I write appeals to the FCC on these things. And if it's reasonable to me, then I'm defending whatever it is, the decision that you've made on that.
So I guess I'm thinking about the infrastructure itself.
Right.
In terms of filtering though. So if it's going through.
Okay, those are really technical questions that I don't have a skill set for that, I'm sorry, but there's probably a bunch of people here who could probably answer that question.
Yeah, well, when it
technically.
comes
No,
to SIPA
Right,
and, you know, filtering for
Right,
SIPA,
right.
it depends on the infrastructure, wouldn't it?
Well, I can tell you, in our public library, we physically segment devices. And so children's section's here, and it's filtered at a certain level, and adult section's there, and it's pretty much unfiltered. And that's driven by our librarian.
and the library board, do not discount these people that are on these library boards who are making these decisions, right? Because there are some libraries you can walk in and, you know, you can just sit down and do.
Yeah.
There are other libraries you walk in and you're like, you have to go up and ask to have permission to have certain things. Yeah, so it just depends on the community, that library board, the librarian themselves, so that's kind of all that. You go right ahead.
I think there's 2 areas you have to look at. One of them is the internet itself, the internet pipe. The other is the infrastructure that brings that in. The priority 2 stuff is infrastructure. And it can only be done in school buildings, in our case. So You can't fund what you buy in the central office unless the central office is the pot for the whole county. There are certain buildings that are not eligible for the infrastructure. But the infrastructure has to be used to deliver the internet out to the schools. And that's how you get to justify paying for it with E-rate money. So that comes into play when you're talking about community access around the school. You know, you can't put a fiber in from the school to the health department next door and offer free community access. E-rate's not gonna pay for that, and you'd have to cost allocate.
I mean, you could do it, it's just that E-rate probably is not gonna pay for that, right? You can do it, but, you know, E-rate's gonna maybe not pay for that. There are a couple other things that I just wanted to talk about here before I cut you loose here for lunchtime. So, the FCC says that you can have, you do not have to cost allocate for after-hours usage. After-hours usage. Right?
It used not to be allowed.
It used to not be allowed, you used to have to cost allocate, but now they're saying, okay, after school hours, so we're talking, you know, what is after school hours? Who determines what that is? Is that 2 o'clock, is that 3 o'clock? And then all night long, and on the weekends, and all that kind of stuff, so that kind of community access is allowed. Right, but, you know, what if I got, you know, people in the parking lot at 10 o'clock in the morning? What does that mean? So now you're talking splitting hairs on this kind of stuff. Right? I try not to really get too worried about that kind of thing, because now they've opened the door for this community access. One last thing, which is kind of interesting to always end with. So we talk about audits, and we talk about different type of things as we go along. There's something called a whistleblower hotline in this program. And what I find is, whoops, I keep getting my heels stuck in this carpet. I find sometimes disgruntled vendors who lost a bid, who will make a code 9 call and, you know, say that there was something wrong going on here. And I've begged the vendors, if you're unhappy with the process and how it worked, do not make a code 9 call. Instead, go through the proper procedures at the state level. There are state rules set up to complain about what happened, because the minute you make that code 9 call, that is an automatic 18-month delay on an application. Automatic. Automatic. So, and then where does it go? It goes to the United States Department of Justice and the FBI. This is a federal program. And I have already had my little visit from 2 antitrust division attorneys and their little FBI friend that they brought with them. And it's interesting. I mean, they're really great people, and we're all after the same thing here. It's just that you need to know that. This is federal law now. This is federal law we're talking about. All right, so I just want to let you know that I am here to make sure that we are all in compliance. We are all in compliance here. We all want the best thing for our schools, our libraries, our kids, our patrons, our teachers. You know, we all want the same thing. But we all have to be kind of marching the same path, right? And I'm here to kind of help make that happen. I know I probably didn't answer all of your questions here today, but I'll make sure that you have information so that if you do have questions, and I'll make sure you have Barry's information also, because we kind of split the state. In the east half, Barry's in the west half. And I'm happy to answer any E-rate questions that you might have. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right. Thanks. All right. And I'll make sure that you have Greg Whittaker's information from Virginia. Okay. He's your man.
Yes.
He's your man. Greg Whittaker's your man. Greg Whittaker. I'll